I like to have a good time when I listen to my horror podcast.
Her left arm
Oh,
was
that's
chopped
so.
off.
Oh my god,
Caused
really?
a panic all over the
Prolonged
country.
their deaths for like months and
The
months.
frightening, alarming, real-life tales show is my horror podcast.
My horror podcast.
That's
Give
it?
pause it.
This
'cause-
is your scary part?
Be scared and laugh hard with the frightening, alarming, real-life tales show. Every Friday on all major podcasting platforms. Don't say I didn't warn you.
For more local podcasts, check out more shows from Pilipinas Indie Podcast and Entertainment Network.
Pipe Network presents.
Welcome to your unfiltered Tagalog Wrestling Podcast. This is the MTG Show Podcast. Okay, welcome to your unfiltered Tagalog Wrestling Podcast. And this is the MTG Show Podcast, a wrestling podcast. Okay, for this week's special only episode, we're going to talk about NXT 2.0. Only NXT 2.0 since we did a attention to detail episode. Siguro we need to follow things up a little bit. So, nag-decide ako na gawin yung top 10 ko based on what I'm trying to watch on 2.0 so far. Kung yung mga napapanood ko sa 2.0, ano yung tingin ko yung impressive characters and gimmicks so far ng 2.0. But for that, bago ako makalimot, kasi may nakalimutan ako from last week's episode. So, I forgot my picks of the week. So, my picks of the week nga pala from last week, episode 90, is the woman, obviously, Charlotte, the men, Chad Gable, and the match of the week is Naomi versus Charlotte for the SmackDown Women's Championship from last week's SmackDown. And then, bago tayo mag-umpisa sa ating episode ngayong linggo, so basically, ano lang to, i-rate lang natin lahat. Hindi naman lahat, no? Para magkakaroon tayo ng top 10 countdown on NXT 2.0 gimmicks so far. So far, sabi ko so far. Sa tingin ko ito yung mga na-impress ako, pwede pa mabago yung rating ko. And sa tingin ko ito yung mga bagay na need nyong i-look forward on NXT TV regardless on his record or his stuff na sa tingin ko makikita nyo on TV. But before we go on our stuff na to, top 10, I want to let you guys know that our Lazada link is still available. Araw-araw naman natin may sale sa Lazada. If you want to support the podcast on Lazada, please use my link, podlink.co/6gs. Again, libre yung paggamit ng link and pag ginamit nyo yan, makakatulong yan here on the podcast with no extra cost to you. So, we're going to take our first commercial break too early and pahabaan natin to. When we come back, we're going to start with our 10 to 5 ratings sa ating NXT 2.0 top 10 gimmicks of 2.0 so far. For now, let's check our other podcast on Pipe Network.
Gusto niya bang malaman kung paano kami nakikipag-collab sa mga brands in the MT Show Podcast? We use Podmetrics. the easiest way to monetize your podcast. If meron kang podcast, sign up now at podmetrics.co and use my code THEMTGSHOWPOD to get full control on how you monetize your show regarding of its size. Again, sign up now at podmetrics.co and use my code THEMTGSHOWPOD. If you're an advertiser who wants to collab with us, head on over to advertiser.podmetrics.co and fill up the form. Again, Podmetrics, the easiest way to monetize your podcast.
You are listening to the MTG Show podcast, an unfiltered Tagalog wrestling podcast where they talk about anything and everything about professional wrestling. Speaking of professional, we are professionally going to segue to our own show, Rule 20 Podcast, where the only professional thing we do are done mostly off the record, behind the cam, and under the sheets. Again, that's Rule 20, available wherever you are listening to this right now. And now back to the podcast.
Okay. Para malinaw kayo sa gusto iparating ng episode na to, we're going to do timeline and guidelines, no? So, ang pagbabasihan natin dito sa top 10 natin is gimmicks na nag-umpisa noong 2021, July 2021 until today, until February 16, 17 Manila time. Today na nag-record ako nitong episode na to. So, that's the guidelines for that. And hindi na natin sinama yung mga na-establish na noong Black and Gold era pa ang NXT. So, yeah, let's start with our top 10 to number 6. So, number 10 ko so far, and pwede pang mabago, is Tiffany Stratton. Oh, marami magtataka sa inyo about this ranking. But I love her gimmick. Personal thought, sobrang impressed ako on how she acts and her feud with Wendy Chu. That's pretty impressive for me. Kaya lang medyo flat pa sa akin. But her gimmick is good, ah. Yung gimmick niya maganda. Kaya lang medyo may kailangan pang galawin o asikasuhin on her gimmick na pwede pa natin ma-enhance. O pwede pa ma-enhance ng NXT. NXT is good for explaining gimmicks naman. Kaya hindi imposible na maayos na itong gimmick, na itong spoiled brat gimmick ni Tiffany Stratton. Siguro may magandang future to pag ipupush na sa mga laking feuds. Pag ipupush na sa mga magagandang stories, yun ang dapat nyong abangan kay Tiffany Stratton. For sure. Number 9 in the list so far is Solo Sikoa. Si Solo Sikoa para sa akin is, I think, is good. Is impressive. But as of the moment, parang hindi pa ganong clear o di ko pa ganong gamay kung ano yung purpose niya ng TBS sa pagiging uso, wannabe, ganyan, something like that. Is good, especially his match versus Boa. But his match versus Boa proved that he can wrestle. Sobrang impressive niya. And especially his confrontation with Kanta on last week's NXT. I think kataas na yung rango niya on 2.0. And pag na-impress ako lalo kay Solo, baka magbago pa tong lineup na to. Baka babago pa yung format niya o yung pwesto niya na dito sa list na to sa Best Gimmicks and Superstar so far ng NXT 2.0. And pwede pa siya mabago. And number 8. I know maraming magugulat dito. I know maraming ma-upset dito. I don't know maraming ma-upset dito. But my number 8 on this is Diamond Mine. Man, Diamond Mine is one of my favorite stables in NXT right now. But there's a problem. Medyo downfall, pataas, pababa yung naging run nitong stable so far. Marami na-release na talents sa stable na to. Plus, Roderick Strong dropping the NXT Cruiserweight Championship and siya pa yung last champion before Carmelo Hayes bago ma-unify yung belts. So, it's kinda downfall for me. It should be top 5. Pero, yung mga downfall na yun, mga reasons na yun, wala. May nagpababa sa akin. Creed Brothers is legit. IB9 legit. Yung Roderick Strong legit. Kahit sino pang member ng Diamond Mine are legit. I swear. Ito yung dapat abangan nyo 2022. One of the reasons na dapat nyo abangan sa Diamond Mine is definitely silang lahat alos. Ito yung dapat abangan nyo 2022 dito sa NXT 2.0. And then, number 7 is parang tag team. Pero hindi siya mukhang tag team sa paningin ko. So, it's Joe Gacy and si Harland. For me, Joe Gacy and Harland, ito yung tipo na The Fiend and Kane na napaglayo mo o napagsama mo sa iisang team. But si Joe Gacy naman, si Joe Gacy can talk, can wrestle, can manipulate something kay Harland. And so far, si Harland is doing a great job on NXT. And sa 205 na magiging level up na rin. And I think he's doing a great job. Although talo si Joe Gacy kay Roderick Strong tong nakaraan lang. I think itong pwesto ng nila Joe Gacy and Harland makes sense kasi sobrang gusto ko yung gimmick nila. And yung pag-establish ng WWE sa gimmick nilang dalawa is kinda superb for me. Alright? And then, number 6. Yun, number 6 before we take our second commercial break. So, number 6, I think, is si Boa. Si Boa, narinig nyo to sa Black and Gold na era. Pero di pa siya ganong fluid nun. And hindi pa rin siya na-introduce na mas maayos sa Black and Gold na yun. Ngayon, sobrang aggressive na nung gimmick niya. Especially yung nag-solo na siya. And nalayo na sa tiyansya. I think this Boa is mas maganda pa kaysa doon sa kasama pa sila Sayali and sila sino nga to? Si Tiancha. I forgot his name na or her name na. Basta yan. I think this is one of the biggest impressive characters and 2.0 right now. And si Boa, I can say is legit. I swear. Parang sobrang solid. Darating ka sa punto na parang ganito yung binibigay sa atin na booking ng 2.0 and we got this. This is pretty impressive. For sure. Okay. So we're going to take our second commercial break and ito na yung second half natin for 2.0 Top 10 NXT 2.0 Gimmicks. And for now, let's check our other podcast on Pipe Network.
Catch the Pizarra Tales weekly as we tackle issues about education and share experiences about teaching. Hosted by James Australia, available on your favorite podcast platforms.
Mainit na diskusyonan,
Masarap na kwentuhan,
malinamnam na usapan,
at nakakagising na balitaktakan.
parang kape lang. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Weya Angeline.
Join us in our conversations at Coffee na Lang Dear Podcast.
Okay, we're back on the podcast. So, let's start with our top 5. Actually, kahit pagpalit-palitin ko ng pwesto, it's okay. But, so far, ito yung mga nag-stand out na gimmick sa akin sa 2.0. But before that, ibibigay ko muna yung aking honorable mention kay Tony D'Angelo. Si Tony D'Angelo is so fucking legit. But, ito, kagaya ng sinabi ko sa episode 90, hindi pa sobrang klaro itong gimmick ni Tony D'Angelo. Parang typical na Italian chef na lang siya na napinapute si Pete Dunne. Parang ang weird pa ng ikot ng kanyang gimmick. Sana ma-build ulit yung gimmick niya. Like what I said doon sa episode 63. Yun lang gusto kong abangan. And gusto kong gawin nila habang binibuild nila to si Tony D'Angelo. And, sige, let's start our top 5. Nga. Parang kahit maalin sa limang to, pwede sila mag-shuffle-shuffle, but depende sa preference nyo. Pero I think these 5 ito yung mga nag-stand out talaga when it comes to gimmicks and yung pagiging legit nila sa 2.0 when it comes to explaining gimmicks and stuff na nakukuha natin with 2.0. Number 5, let's start with toxic attraction. I think toxic attraction, sorry kung kumakain ako, kasi gutom ako eh. I think toxic attraction, ito yung legit. Mas tingin ko, isa sa mga pinaka-legit na stables na nag-work mapa main roster or NXT. Ito yung pinaka nag-work sa gimmick ni Mandy Rose, which is pretty impressive. Dagdagan mo pa ni JJ Dolim and dito si JJ Dolim at si JCJ. Nakakalain mo magtutugma-tugma pala ang mga gimmick na mga to. I can say is wow, nakakalain mo magtutugma-tugma ang mga to. And I love her gimmick, to be honest. Sobrang gusto ko yung gimmick ni Gigi. And pag nawala naman siguro ang toxic, si Gigi ang makikinabang ng push na to. Most likely. And makikinabang sa success ng toxic attraction. Aside from Mandy, si Mandy kasi may success na talaga sa WWE. I forgot to mention as well sa honorable natin, si Cora Jade. Si Cora Jade, I love her gimmick sa pagiging AJ Lee, bagong AJ Lee, but she needs to improve muna. Mga magagandang spots niya from 2.0 sa War Games and her match versus Raquel is pretty damn solid. Pero, meron pa akong mga bagay na kukulangan pa ako. Like her gimmick, ano ba talaga yung gimmick niya? Skateboard ka lang ba? Sobrang di pa siya clear sa akin. Di pa siya klaro. Kumbaga, kailangan pa i-fluid. Gaya ng mga gimmick ng toxic. Gaya ng iba pang sa lineup ko. Na i-start ko na nga. So, number 4 on my list is Grayson Waller. Personally, this gimmick ni Grayson Waller, sobrang lakas itong makahakot. Sobrang lakas makachampa eh. Kung nasa legit na crowd to, itong part na to ni Grayson Waller, itong gimmick na to ni Grayson Waller, I think ito yung isa mga pinaka-legit na superstars na mahahawakan nila and yung magiging successful gimmicks ng mga superstar nila if si Grayson Waller yung hawak, di ba? I think si Grayson din yung isa sa mga pinaka-legit heels na 2.0 right now. Parang siya yung pumalit kay Ciampa na heel. Kung gusto niyo panoorin yung mga legit match din ni Grayson, panoorin niyo yung match niya versus AJ and of course his spots at War Games, siyempre. Number 3, of course, our NXT champion na si Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker, man. Prove it to me, sobrang legit ni Braun. Right now, I think is on top 3. But pwede yan magbago-bago para pabago-bago lang sila ni ni Carmelo Hayes. But I think Braun can stay on top 3 right now. I think Braun Breaker needs more improvement a little bit. Wala namang problema sa skill niya, walang problema sa mic. His mic is fine. And matches is fine. But the biggest problem when it comes to Braun Breaker is masyado siyang sapaw sa tatay niya. Na mga stars kasi minsan parang, ito pala yun, 4th gen, 2nd gen superstar. For example, si Nati. Kaya nawawala ng relevance si Nati. Parang ganun ang nakikita ko kay Braun Breaker. Siguro, pag maganda na yung future nito ni Braun, kita natin next year baka nagme-main event na yan ng WrestleMania o baka maganda na ang push niya in the future. But sana nga bigyan ng magandang run pa to sa NXT. And it's gonna be legit. Number 2. Okay. Ito na yung isa mga importanteng gimmicks na kailangan ko i-mention sa list na to. I think mababago pa as I said. So, siguro gagawin ko to list at least every 4 weeks. I-update natin tong list every 4 weeks. And number 2 is Carmelo Hayes. Hindi na rin kagulat-gulat na si Melo yung number 2 natin dito. Because Carmelo Hayes is so fucking impressive. From his entrance, from his gimmick, from his matches, from his run with the North American Championship, Trick Williams as a bonus, that's so fucking impressive. And hindi ko man masabing legit, but his gimmick is so fucking legit. This kind of reminds me of MVP earlier in the days. And sobrang legit ni Melo. Although his mic needs some improvement a little bit. Kasi parang siyang tutuloy na tulig. And I'm glad that Trick Williams is there to talk. And yun, sobrang malaking promising star ito ni Trick and ni Carmelo Hayes in the future. Marami kayong aabangan sa mga tao na yan pag sumikat pa yan at pag nagpunta na yan main roster. Then, number 1 on our top 10 list so far. Kailangan ko pa ba i-introduce to? Number 1 is Wendy Chu. Wow. Okay guys, so explain ko lang ng konti bakit si Wendy Chu. I think Wendy Chu is ito yung pinaka-successful gimmick so far ng 2.0. Aside kina Braun, aside sa Toxic. I think si Wendy Chu yung, I know she's a running gag ng 2.0, but I think sobrang ganda ng purpose niya and nade-deliver niya yung purpose niya. Regardless sa matches, I don't care about her win-loss record. But I think Wendy Chu owns the crowd. And yung pagiging antukin niya, syempre, kasama na yon sa formalities ng gimmick niya. Which is, that's why I choose it number 1. Sobrang impressive kasi ng kanyang pag-acto doon sa kanyang gimmick. So that's why I choose Wendy Chu on my top 1. On my top 10 NXT 2.0 gimmicks so far na pwede pang mabago in 4 weeks. I think 4 weeks is too early. I think kaya natin ito mga 8 weeks. Mag-update tayo ng ganito ding episode for that. And for now, sige, magpapalag na ako. And ma-update ko pa naman to in the next few months. 8 weeks nga. 8 weeks ang magiging timetable ko. Probably April. Makapagawa tayo ng isa pang ganito. But for now, sige, we're going to plug a lot. So, follow the podcast on all social media platforms. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and on TikTok at the MTG Show Pod. So, if hindi niyo pa napapakinggan yung latest episode ng podcast, please listen to our episode number 19. That's predictions for Elimination Chamber. Kung napanood nyo ng Elimination Chamber, it's good. As per today's episode na ilalabas on Tuesday, Manila time. On that note, and then please listen to our episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and on the podcast app which is available on Google Play Store. Please don't forget to rate our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts 5 stars or 6 as soon as you can. And then follow the podcast network, Pipe Network, on all of the social media platforms at Pipe Network. And visit our website, pipenetwork.co, for more Pipe Network shows and my personal social media platforms at AG Penera on Twitter and Instagram. So that's it for our this week's episode, special episode of the podcast for our top 10 NXT 2.0 gimmicks as of February 17, 2022. Stay safe, stay reso. Please get your vaccines, boosters, etc. And double mask up, and wag na kayo lumabas as soon as you can. And on May 2022, please wag po tayo boboto ng magdanakaw at sinungaling. Yan. So the MTA Show podcast out. See you on the next episode on Friday.
Did you know that podcasts are the new radio? You can listen to your favorite shows anytime, anywhere on demand. Visit the Pilipinas Indie Podcast and Entertainment Network at pipenetwork.co to see our list of shows. And like us on Facebook to get updates on our latest episodes, events, promos, and freebies. The Pipe Network, taking podcasting to the next level.